Internal Revenue Service IRS tax news. To help non-filers, IRS sets November 10th as National EIP Registration Day. Register at IRS.gov for economic impact payment. IR 2020-242, October 23rd, 2020, Washington. The Internal Revenue Service today set November 10th as National EIP Registration Day, end quote, as the agency and partners across the country launch a final push to encourage everyone who doesn't normally file a tax return to register to receive an economic impact payment. So they're still trying to have this push for the economic impact payment for those who have not received an economic impact payment, usually or generally because there's no return filing requirement to then do the necessary steps in order to get the economic impact payment. So, quote, National EIP Registration Day, end quote, will take place just a few days ahead of the extended November 21st registration deadline. So they extended the registration process. So if you're a non-filer, you don't need to file your tax return, you haven't received an economic impact payment, or you know someone in that position and they haven't received the economic impact payment and they don't need to file and they haven't received their economic impact payment because the IRS couldn't do so using some other federal program payment process such as Social Security and whatnot, then they can register for the economic impact payment. The deadline been pushed out. It's been pushed out a couple times. Now it's at November 21st. That looks like the last time they're going to push it out, unless the IRS pushes it out again. But it looks like the last time to push it out. So they want to get everybody that can qualify to do so at that time. If you go past that deadline, then those individuals wouldn't be able to pick up the EIP if they hadn't yet received it until they file the tax return for 2020 in 2021. And these people probably don't need to file a tax return, so that would delay the economic impact payment for them, and they would have to do steps that they would not have to do, such as file a tax return, instead of doing like kind of an easier process, which is this registration process. So once again, IRS doing their final push. Looks like they're really trying to make this November 21st the final deadline, unless they push it out again, but it looks like they're trying to make that the last time final deadline on this process. So this special event will feature support from IRS partner groups inside and outside the tax community, including those that work with low-income and underserved communities. These groups will help spread the word about the new November 21st deadline and, in some cases, provide special support for people who still need to register for the payments. The IRS has already sent nearly 9 million letters to people who may be eligible for the $1,200 economic impact payments, but don't normally file a tax return. The letters, along with special November 10th event, both urge people to use the non-filer Enter Info Here tool. There's a link to that here, available exclusively on IRS.gov. So these are for people that do not need to file, that haven't received their economic impact payment. It would be easier to do this process than generally to fill a tax return out, which would be what would be necessary if the deadline passed and the tool wasn't used. So, quote, our partners group have been a critical part of the unprecedented IRS outreach and education campaign this year to contact as many people as possible about these payments, end quote, said IRS Commissioner Chuck Reddick, quote, as a result, millions of Americans have successfully used the non-filer partial and received their economic impact payment. Registration is quick and easy, and we urge everyone to share this information to reach as many people before time runs out on November 21st, end quote. To support the ongoing effort, as well as, quote, National EIP Registration Day, end quote, many partner groups have been working with the IRS, helping translate and making available economic impact payment information and resources in 35 languages. The IRS also plans a special push on social media to support final registration drive in multiple languages. While most eligible U.S. taxpayers have automatically received, there's a link to automatically received here, their economic impact payment, others who don't have a filing obligation should use the non-filer tool to register with the IRS to get their money. Typically, this includes people who receive little or no income. So most people, you'll recall this whole thing. They're sending out the economic impact payment. They kind of tied it to 2020 return, which isn't going to be filed till 2021, but they're predicting what the economic impact payment will be based on prior returns, 2019 if filed, if not 2018. So if you file 2019 or 2018, then you shouldn't use this tool. You should have already got your economic impact payment. If you qualify for it, this is not for you. If you haven't filed 2019 or 2018 and you're required to do so, meaning your income is over the threshold in order to do so, then the IRS still wants you to file the return rather than use this tool. You got to file the return. If you're not qualified or not needing to file a return due to the fact that your income or taxable income is below the threshold for which filing is required, then you may use this tool, although you might have already received an economic impact payment, even if you're in that category, due to the fact that the IRS has some other government payment information about those individuals, such as Social Security and whatnot, on which they made an economic impact payment, even though tax returns will not filed. Now, if you haven't received an economic impact payment, you're not required to file a tax return, and you didn't file a tax return, then, that's the place where we're at this point in time, where they're targeting to get the economic impact payments out. So since the non-filer tool launched in the spring, over 8 million people who normally aren't required to file a tax return have registered for the payments. The IRS continues to work to reach others who haven't used the tool yet, which led to the special mailing and special November 10th registration event. The tool is designed for people with incomes typically below $24,400 for married couples and $12,200 for singles who could not be claimed as dependent by someone else. So those are the thresholds. So if you're under $24,400 and married, $12,200 single, you may not be required to file, may not have filed, and therefore you may not have gotten the economic impact payment. The tool then would be for you. Note that if you're under those thresholds, however, it doesn't mean you don't want to file the tax return, because I just don't want to give that impression, because you may still have withholdings that you would be getting back, even if your income is below the threshold of a filing requirement that you may want to file for, or you might have refundable tax credits such as an earned income credit or child tax credits. So even people that are under this threshold may benefit from actually filing the returns to see if they would qualify for refundable credits, child tax credit, EIP, for example, and possibly any withholdings that could have been taken on the earnings that were there. So anyone using the non-filer tool can speed up the arrival of their payment by choosing to receive it by direct deposit. Those not choosing this option will get a check. Obviously, one of the problems could be for some people that if there's a homeless problem or someone's moving around, then there may be a problem, of course, with where the IRS is getting the payment to. That might be one of the things that stopped the IRS from being able to process the payment in the first place. So if you have an electronic type of payment, if you know someone in a situation, obviously, if they have the electronic type of payment, then they can have the direct deposit. That'll be faster. And if not, then of course some type of mail-in address is going to be necessary in order to mail out the payment. So beginning 2 weeks after the register, people can track the status of their payment using Get My Payment tool, available only on IRS.gov. So once you've registered, you can track the payment using the Get My Payment tool. There's a link to that here. There'll be a link to this in the description.